Hey, I am so jazzed today. I have a marketing legend in this studio to talk with you today. He's also one of my best friends, Joe Soto. He has worked with names that you've bought thousands of dollars worth of their books and their programs. I'm jazzed that he's joining us today. You're not going to want to miss this episode.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
Hey, Joe, as I said, folks, yeah, wow. As I said, I've got a marketing guru, and I'm honored to call you my friend. I thought I'd start out real quick by just saying how we met. We met, did business together, I think probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You were being coached by an action coach at the time. I still don't remember, to be honest with you, I still don't remember the actual introductions and connections, but the bottom line was we started to do some business together. It was all great. Joe's an incredible guy as a person, as well as a marketing guru and business genius. And so built up a friendship. And then all of a sudden, we fell out of touch. We hadn't talked to each other, and then bam, I'm in his mastermind group about a year or so ago. So anyway, Joe, welcome. I'm just really privileged to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Don. I'm glad to be here.
So hey, I thought I wanted to take two approaches here together in the time that we're together. So one is, how you got into business for yourself and the business that you are in, and then we'll talk a little bit about your thoughts on what's going on in the business world, how it might impact our audience, which is people in franchising, mostly consultants, brokers, emerging brand owners. So how'd you get into business? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny, I don't get asked that very often. Like, how did I get into business in general? How I got into business in general was, I grew up in a family where my father was working in a grocery store every day. And I saw how his life was kind of dedicated to just serving in that capacity. And I had an uncle who was an entrepreneur and on my mom's side. And that uncle, when my mom passed away at a very young age, kind of took it upon himself to make sure he had a consistent show up and influence in my life. And when I lost my father at 18, my uncle kind of said, listen, why don't you go to school near me, and you can work for my company, and you can kind of learn a little bit about what I do as an entrepreneur. Right. And I saw him working from his home offices. He did have a couple of places where his companies were at, but he primarily worked from home. And I saw that at a really early age back in 1992. And I was like, wow, this is kind of what I want to be able to do, because I saw he called his own shots. I saw he controlled his own schedule. I saw him mastering sales. And that's the advice he gave me. He said, if there's one thing I can tell you, and he told me this when I was like 19 years old, he said, if you can learn how to sell and market, you will never have to worry about, being in a poor financial situation.
Absolutely.
And he knew my home life and kind of what I grew up with, and that inspired me. So that's how I got into business. I followed in his footsteps.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. So, as you think about it now, years later, I know your background. You've owned several different kinds of businesses. I know what you're doing today. And again, we've got a lot of consultants, brokers, career coaches as our watchers. What do you think it takes to really be in business for yourself?
Yeah. So I think that you have to be resilient. I think that, resiliency is the number one personal characteristic that can be overlooked, which is just the ability to bounce back and to take on the failures or the roller coaster ride and be able to still go at it and with consistency. Right.
Yeah.
So I look for that in people that I coach and that I'm training to see, are they resilient? Do they figure it out? We have a mantra in our household with our children. As you know, we're parents of 9 children, and I'll tell them, like, we'll look at them sometimes like, you got to figure it out, because that figuring it out builds resiliency in them. Can you be resourceful? And I think resourcefulness is part of being resilient. So if you're going to figure it out, you're going to bounce back, you got to be flexible enough to go out there and find a new way. And, we've had ups and downs in our business. I've had complete pivots and reinventions in business where we went in a whole different direction. But as an entrepreneur, you've got to be resilient, and you've got to be willing to see risks differently. So, I was having a conversation recently where this kind of wannabe entrepreneur said to me, I have a family as well, Joe, but I've always had to work for somebody because I feel like I need to have that security, or I'm putting them at risk. And I says, it's interesting you say that, because I felt like going to work for somebody would put them more at risk.
We used to say, sorry to interrupt you, but we used to say, how many customers do you have when you have a job? You have one. How many customers do you have when you own your own business? Hundreds or whatever it might be.
That's right.
You're absolutely right. Yep. Revenue sources. In fact, I was telling a similar story where first year I was in business, I was running a seminar, and I had like three different marketing tools that we were going to do, and one of them fell apart in the last few days. And in my corporate world, I would have gone over in the corner and cried and whined, sucked my thumb, as my mentor Charlie Tremendous Jones always talked about. But instead, what I did is I took that same amount of money I was planning on spending, I threw it at one of the other advertisers, and we had a great event. And that's that, like you said, bounce back. Anybody, you kind of touched on it real briefly, but I don't want to forget the question. That is, anybody or any advice for anybody considering going into business for themselves? Anybody that you think shouldn't? I mean, just, in your experience, you've seen people went, oh, wow, that guy never should have gone into business. Any thoughts on that?
I don't think you're like a born entrepreneur. So I think that, if you go back to books like Think and Grow Rich, and some of the principles that are shared in that type of book, I think the first principle, the first real chapter is on desire. So I think that ties with ambition. I've met people who have a desire and they want to get into business for themselves, but they don't really have the ambition to see it through. In other words, their levels of where they can be content stop earlier than what an entrepreneur has. An entrepreneur isn't in it to just, and most of the ones I've met that are successful, or the ones I want to model after, let's put it that way, aren't in it just for the financial gains. They're in it for the servitude of it. They want to be able to serve other people and have a bigger impact than they could in a job and just serving, as you just said, one person, one client, one customer. And so whether you're doing, and I know you're the expert on franchise consulting and franchise development, a franchise broker or a franchise consultant gets to touch many lives. They get to help people, fulfill a dream of owning their own business, right? If somebody's looking to buy a franchise, they, I would say, are you ambitious enough to see it through? Do you have the resiliency to bounce back when because you're going to experience some failure? So I would say somebody who doesn't genuinely have the ambition or the aspiration to impact or go beyond, somebody who isn't willing to push their capabilities and see through their potential. And there are plenty of opportunities. Like if somebody says, well, I'm just kind of content with X and doing this, I'm happy with that, but it would be nice to have my own business. I would say, that nice to have isn't going to work. Okay. There's got to be like this powerful desire and drive in you that you have that's burning. I always had that. For me, it was, I wanted to, my burning desire was attached to, I wanted to have time freedom. I wanted to control my schedule. I wanted to be able to, like next week, decide when I want to go on vacation with my family. We're going down to Florida, for example, at the time we're recording this call. And if I was working for somebody else, I would have to schedule that, or hopefully squeeze a couple weeks, and if I'm lucky, maybe 3 weeks, a year Whereas when you're working for yourself, but I have a strong desire to make sure that what I do makes that available to me. And I think
And folks,
Some people lack that ambition.
Yep. And folks, I can tell you that I've known Joe long enough. Joe's not one of these guys who just talks it. Joe lives it from the standpoint of his give back. You know, he's done a lot for me personally, and I know he lives it out. You know, the control of your time, as you said, 9 kids. It's like, you know, how do you do anything but the 9 kids? But you and Lene have just modeled it tremendously. So, hey, I want to now. I really want to switch gears on you now and use the word pivot like you did. Kind of pivot the conversation over to marketing. You know, or lead generation. One of the biggest challenges I think in franchising, and I've been in franchising 22, 23 years. One of the biggest challenges has always been lead generation. You're a marketing guru. You work specifically a lot with solopreneurs, as well as you've worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, and you should drop some of those names. But what do you think is going on in lead marketing now? You know, what's working? What do you think has kind of been worn out and isn't working anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a big question because there's a lot of things that can work. And I think therein lies some of the challenges we have is that people are getting hit sometimes from different. I'm not a marketing. I don't like to use the word guru, but you look at some of the marketing gurus out there that hit you with, you need to be everywhere all at once. And a lot of those people have grown their brands to a point where they can be. They've got sometimes people following around with them with cameras and video and doing all the video editing. And so being everywhere online, where they're showing up on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and Twitter and everywhere else, is great. However, for most people, I advise them, don't be I'm on all these platforms, and if someone finds me, I'm not very present or great on any of them. Find the platform you resonate the most with, that your audience probably spends a great deal of their time on. And in the broker, consultant, coaching world, in the world that you live in and I live in, where professional service businesses, solopreneurs, I always tell people, if you can, start with LinkedIn and YouTube, because right now those 2 platforms, there's so much opportunity on. YouTube, I think, is still in its infancy. There's just not enough people. There's companies. There's plenty of room for you to stand out on YouTube and get traffic. People that will, see a link that you put in the description and possibly click on it to download your free gift, or to book a call with you, or to go to your website to see whatever it is that you're offering. And your content on YouTube should be service driven, meaning how can I give somebody valuable information that's going to genuinely help them, so they see me in the light. I'm showcasing the light as an authority and somebody who can give them value and that they might want to pair up with and work with, or hire. Right. So YouTube and LinkedIn is the same way. You can repurpose the YouTube videos onto LinkedIn. You can chop up a video on YouTube and put it on LinkedIn and hire a VA to do that. LinkedIn is linked. A lot of people are using LinkedIn the wrong way. They use it as a way to spam people in the messages. And that's not the way to do it. I have a LinkedIn message that my first connection message, if I'm reaching out to someone for the first time, I don't send them links. I don't tell them what I do, because they can learn about that on LinkedIn. They can go on the profile and read about what I do. I just simply say, hey, let's connect. It looks like we have a lot of shared interests. And if there's anyone in my network that you would like an introduction to, let me know. And the reason why I say that is because that's what LinkedIn is technically for. It's you have a network, and you're there to network and share a network with other people. Yet we forget that. People go, I'm going to use LinkedIn and generate a lead, and I'm going to spam them with my links and tell them what I do, and maybe they'll get excited about my program and they'll want to call me. And that might be true, but that's not the way people want to be approached. Imagine if you did that at a live cocktail event or something. Right?
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen a little.
Here's my website and my card.
I've seen a clip somewhere on the internet where they show somebody using the techniques that people are trying to use on LinkedIn, and they're walking down the street. They stop somebody. It's hilarious.
Yeah. So I would advise, if I was talking to someone, I say, don't get hung up on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, or maybe you don't have time for blogging right now. Find 1 or 2 of these and get good at getting content on those. Now, can you repurpose that content and share the YouTube video on Facebook and on Instagram? Of course, but master one or two of these of where your audience is, and don't sweat the rest. Because honestly, at the end of the day, those people, those people's judgment isn't going to matter. Because some people will say to me sometimes, Joe, you don't post enough. I mean, I got tens of thousands of followers on Facebook. I don't post every day on there. Yeah. I spend my time on LinkedIn and YouTube. And as a result of that, that's turned into a significant amount of revenue that's been generated for me through those two platforms, because I happen to serve a similar audience that your audience serves.
Yep. One of the things that I've taught for a long time is and we talked about this in our mastermind last year about being consistent, then proficient, and then master. And you can't do that with how many platforms are out there. You can't do that with more than one or two platforms. You'll never get to mastery if you're trying to do everything, if you're trying to be everywhere.
That's right. And then the other piece I would say to this, Don, is as you produce content and get it out there, give people a call to action of what to do next. Now that they've heard this from you, they've gotten some value from you. Where should they go next? Can you send them to a lead magnet? So for example, I have, and it might be one that you want to share. I could put it in the comments too. I can link it in here. It's clientattractionhacks.com. So for example, that is a 7 proven ways to earn and capture the attention of your ideal clients. You asked me what's something that we could maybe give away. That's a free training. That's a free training and a guide on there on 7 ways to get the attention and grab clients. That's something that I would give away at the end of my YouTube video. I would tell people, hey, go to clientattractionhacks.com at the end of a LinkedIn message or a LinkedIn post. If you like this post, you might like my 7 ways to attract new clients. And it's free. It's all free. Yes. So I'm not trying to sell them anything on that. And quite honestly, at the end of it, I don't sell them on anything. Right. It just gets them on my list. And that's the most valuable asset anyone listening can build. So because Facebook and YouTube, they own your followers and subscribers, not you, right? Your most valuable asset you can own. I call it traffic. There's traffic you can own is your email list. There's traffic that you pay for, because you can pay for ads on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. There's traffic that you earn, which is organic. I do a post. Don does something on his podcast. People want to follow up with Don, and they find one of his lead magnets or one of his downloads or checklists, and now they get onto his list. That's the most valuable thing you can do when you're doing this content, be purposeful with it. Now, some people listening might say, well, Joe, what if my intention is just to build awareness? That's fine. But every once in a while, sprinkle in something that can drive traffic and build your list as well.
We've seen
tell you how many people I meet, and they go, I have no email list. And I'm like, nowadays that's inexcusable, because the internet gives us so many great resources to do this. And one of them I'll put in the comments here, and we can share it in the thing is attract.io. I think I can't put it on here, but I will put a link after this show and share it. But attract.io allows you to create one of these free lead magnets entirely for free. They don't really, if you want something more robust than what they have another product. But attract.io is one of the best free resources I've ever been able to show someone, because in a matter of minutes, literally, they can have a checklist or a little case study or some sort of like guide they could give away branded to their business, Don. And it'll allow you to collect an email and send you the email, so you have it in your asset as an asset.
And we've talked about this. You're giving away some of the secrets that companies charge thousands of dollars for. So this is why, folks, I always love getting with Joe, because, man, he just shows me this stuff that's going to save me thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I love free resources like attract.io.
They work, and they really work.
I did a webinar one time with a group of people I was coaching, and I just literally opened up attract.io and I said, watch, in less than 10 minutes, we're going to create a lead magnet that someone will want to download and give me their email. And then it gives me a link I can share on my social media. And people were like, oh my gosh, I thought this was much harder than that. I thought I had to spend like thousands of dollars on design and have somebody create this for me. I'm like, nope.
And people don't realize, I think it's important, Joe, for the audience to understand. They go, well, I love the Facebook thing, or I love LinkedIn, but the traffic you own is because they change their platforms. They change the rules of the game on all of us.
Yeah.
And if we're 100% dependent on the platform, we're going to be either out of business, or we're certainly going to be delayed for months getting back in the rhythm and the sequences that they've set up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, we're winding down. And again, I just want to show my gratitude to you for being on with us. I always like to ask one final question, and that is there anything that we haven't talked about, anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share? You think people would really, really benefit from this final thought? Anything like that you want to share before we wrap?
No, I think that I think that for me, probably the most important thing I can share with people, particularly somebody watching who has a family, who has responsibilities beyond themselves, is to remember that the most important stuff is the people that are around you every day, right? And so for me, what's kept me grounded, or kept it light and kept it more stress-free than some people that I see as peers that are really getting worked up about their business or their ups and downs, is that we design our business around our life, not the other way around. We don't design our life and our time around our business. So in other words, I have non-negotiables when I stop working, so I can be free in the evenings. And quite honestly, I'm done by like 4 o'clock. So I can be free. I can free up my wife so she can, if she wants to cook dinner and I want to go play with the kids, or vice versa, we have each other to support each other and do that. And so I can make the time for the family that they deserve. And when it's so easy to be like, because sometimes my kids or my wife will say, do you have work? And the answer is, I always have work. So I could always be working. So sometimes she'll say, well, I'm going to go do this with the kids. Do you have work? You want to stay home and work? And I'm like, listen, I can always work. I have plenty to keep my plate full. It isn't a matter of, I don't put a lot of deadlines on myself, but I have an ongoing plethora of work to do. So then that's probably everybody here listening. They always feel like I'm always got something to do. So that's always going to be the case. So be the master of your time and your schedule. So that way your work is designed around what's important for you, for time spent with family, not the other way around.
Awesome words of wisdom, business and personal, love ending on the personal stuff. Again, Joe, thanks, man. We appreciate you. Yeah. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me, Don.
Mm-hmm.